Welcome everyone to this education webinar series held through Henley & Partners worldwide. And today we're talking about the Young People Index. And I'm delighted to have Henley & Partners Associate, Mr. John Crocker, joining us on our webinar today. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get going. This webinar is going to last around 20-25 minutes. There is an opportunity in the question and answer channel to enter any questions, any queries, any chat that you might have that you'd like us to be aware of, and we can answer those as we go along, or if there's time at the end, we can come back to those. But otherwise, let's welcome John Crocker to today's webinar. One of the biggest challenges for a parent internationally is not only knowing how good are their children academically and how well will they cope, but also what impact will they have on the world? What are they like as individuals? And John is here today to talk about the Young People Index, which is a wonderful new product that we're offering through Henley & Partners. And so over to you, John, and welcome to today's webinar.
Great. Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name's John Crocker, and as you can see on the left, I've been working in international education for 30 years now. And today I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour of the Young People Index. My particular focus is going to be on impact, which is an element of success for all of us. By impact, I mean the energy we bring to our classroom, to our workplace, and even to our personal lives. The impact we make and the contribution we make to the work and the studies and the people around us. Just to give you a bit of background, the Young People Index is connected to the GC Index. The GC Index is for adults, and the Young People Index is an adaptation of this, which is used for people aged 14 to 17. They're both similar in terms of concept and framework, but the Young People Index has been adapted to suit the younger markets. One of the key differences, however, is the GC Index, which we use with businesses, is about solving problems. The Young People Index isn't solving problems, it's about raising awareness. And I'll explain this more as we go through. There are certain impact areas that even in our educational time are important, and we can start to develop so that when we hit the workplace, we've already honed these skills and learned about how best we can make our own contribution. And you can see there on the left elements like leadership, creativity, teamwork, etc. These are all highly valued by employers. And the sooner young people start to develop an awareness and an ability in these areas, then the more attractive they are to future employers. So let's look at how the index itself works. It's three very simple steps. First of all, there are some online questions which are sent via email. They're all online. It takes about 10 minutes to answer them. There's no right or wrong answers. It's just give your honest answer. You'll be scoring them between 1 and 10. Once this has been completed, I can then generate the report, and I'll book in an online feedback session, normally on Zoom. At this time, this will be a chance to walk through the report with your child. This feedback session is with the child rather than with you. And we explain their profile, we talk about it, we get them to think about it, and if they feel it reflects them accurately. And at the end of the session, I'll send them a copy of the report for them to keep and obviously to share with you as well. It's quite a comprehensive report. It's about 20 pages. So we don't go through in painful detail at the time. We pick out the salient points, and then they can look through it later on their own. Once they've had a chance to look through it, we have a further session, a reflection session, where they've had a chance to consider their profile, and I can answer any questions they've got. And normally during this session, I give them a short task to do just to make use of the knowledge they've gained. This might be looking at transferable skills like critical thinking and resilience, or it could be an organizational task, such as organizing an event, just to see how they approach the task. It's all done in quite a conversational, friendly style. It's not a test. They're not being interrogated. It's a chance to find out more about themselves. What the YPI, the Young People Index, is not, it's not a personality test. It's not an intelligence test or a competency test or a test of memorization. There's no right or wrong answers. You can't give a wrong answer to this. It's just your answer. And there's also no such thing as a good or bad profile. All profiles have to be taken in context of what your particular circumstances are. So again, there's no reason to compare one with another and say one's better than another. It's all about 5 proclivities that I'm going to run through in a second. And each of these proclivities get a score between 1 and 10, which means there's 100,000 different combinations of profiles. So you're unlikely to meet someone with an identical profile. Let me run through the profiles for you to understand what the assessment looks at. The first one is the game changer. Game changers are visionary. They can often spot solutions or alternative ways of doing things that other people don't identify. And they can be very inspirational leaders with a great deal of energy. But with every proclivity, there's also the potential of a slight downside, and the game changer is no different. Game changers can tend to lose interest once the initial shine has worn off a project. They can be stubborn, like a dog with a bone, if they're determined their idea is the best one. And they can become frustrated if others don't share their same level of enthusiasm. But brilliant people for transformative ideas and leading in a new direction. The strategist works very well with a game changer because they can appreciate new concepts. They're not put off by change. And importantly, they can take the game changer's ideas and make them into tangible, concrete plans. They're very good with statistics, with spotting patterns, with using data, and they can create the plan for the idea to go ahead. Their downside is they can at times lack attention to detail. They're more what you might call big picture. And there is a tendency sometimes to be distracted by new ideas and lose focus if they're not kept on track. The implementer doesn't wish to sit in the meeting with the game changer and the strategist. They want to roll up their sleeves and get on with the work. They like a to-do list. They like a plan to get on with and start ticking off the tasks. They are the workhorses and they are fantastic at executing things and making things happen. Their downside can be they'll get frustrated if the process is holding up progress and if there isn't a very clear line of action. And they can be on occasion too quick to settle for good enough when perhaps things need to be improved further. So they're very fast to move on to the next task. In contrast, the polisher isn't very good with a to-do list because they set very high standards for themselves and for others. They are all about continuous improvement, making things the best they can possibly be, which is fantastic. And certainly they make a very valuable contribution. Downsides for them are not knowing when to let go and move on. As I said, they don't have a to-do list because it never finishes because they always think something could be made better. And there can be a tendency to be self-critical and critical of others, which can inhibit other people if they don't feel they can meet the same high standards. And then finally, we have the playmaker. The playmaker is the cohesive glue. They bring people together, they get the best out of people, and they ensure that everyone is working towards a collective goal. Downsides for them are they're not great dealing with politics or big egos, and they're not at their best when dealing with conflict, and they prefer a more harmonious setup. So those are the 5 proclivities, and I say, and everyone that does the assessment gets a score between 1 and 10 for each one. As a rough guideline, it's a typical bell curve, as in the extremes of 1 and 10, only around 2.5% of the population score at either extreme. Most people fall into the 5-6 category as a general guideline. So when I did my GC index, as obviously I've done, I'm a playmaker game changer, which means I'm very good at collaborating, at working towards collective goals and getting the best out of people. I'm not so good when it comes to conflict. I do admit I struggle with that. And I'm also a game changer. I'm always looking for new ways of doing things, alternatives, better ways, hopefully. So that's my profile. We always talk about our top 2 proclivities, playmaker, game changer for me. Playmaker is my first proclivity. And I'd just be interested now, I'm going to see if we can launch a short poll. What do you think your main proclivity is? So there are your 5 choices. And I'd just like to see what you think you are. I'll give you a few seconds to answer.
And just a reminder, John, as you're waiting, there is a question and answer channel. So anyone who has a question, please pop it in there and we can ask those questions as we go along or at the end of the session.
Brilliant. Thanks, John. Right, at the moment on my screen, John, either everyone is shy or I can't see the votes. Ah, there we go. Got it now. Brilliant. Okay, so no implementers or polishers, which is interesting. Looks like a few people that might share a similar profile to me. So yeah, interesting there. So we've got a straight 3-way split between those proclivities. It was just really of interest just to see how people might view themselves from this short introduction. So I'll close that and let's move on to the next section. I mentioned earlier, there's no good or bad profiles. Everyone makes an impact. Everyone can make a contribution. So it's very important that the young people that do this feel positive about their profile because they are all positive. It doesn't mean we don't have blind spots. It doesn't mean we don't have areas that we could all improve. And that's not just for young people, that's for all of us. But within classrooms, within teams, within organizations, we need everyone to contribute and everyone can. And you can see there a sort of general flow chart moving from the game changers through the different proclivities and how everyone works together to make things happen, make things better. So to say, no good or bad profiles. What it can do though is help people start to make decisions about directions in their life and the type of job that you want to do. I mean, clearly, if you are applying for a job at a firm of accountants and that's been established for over 200 years and your job is to check the figures, you might well be looking at an implementer or a polisher for detail and getting tasks completed. You don't want a game changer who's looking for a new way of approaching these things. So context is everything. I want to give you a couple of case studies just to start to draw towards a conclusion. This is a young girl called Daisy, 14 years old. And I always ask whoever I'm doing the assessment with to predict their scores before we actually look at the profile. And Daisy didn't have a clue what her scores might be. So it was a revelation to her when she saw her profile here. Now, I'd call that quite a balanced profile, with the outlier perhaps being the game changer at a 3. But overall, Daisy's got a good balanced outlook there. Her profile, because we've got some equal scores, her profile is polisher, strategist. And as I say, Daisy didn't know what her scores might be, but as we started to discuss it, she came up with a couple of interesting insights about her own profile. One was that she wants to go to the University of Bath and study psychology. And polishers are innovators and they like to make things better. And she said, well, I want to make people better. I want to help them. I want to improve them if I can and be the best they can be. And a polisher is very much about making things the best they can be, which I thought was an interesting observation from her. The other one she mentions was she's got a hobby of cake decorating, and she doesn't create the designs herself. She uses Instagram and she follows the basic instructions, and then she adds her own twist to it, which for me is a sort of perfect definition of innovation again, of not necessarily creating the original idea, but improving on the existing model. So I just thought that was interesting, and these were her own insights. Now I'm going to move on to a second case study, a very different profile. And this is Louis, who has a far more extreme set of proclivities. Quite clearly, Louis is a game changer polisher, and Louis struggled in education. Not because he wasn't bright, extremely intelligent chap, but he didn't necessarily fit into the traditional educational environment. He's too quick to want to find other ways of doing things, and very much someone that asks questions about why we're doing this and why don't we do it this way. And it's not always the case that teachers want to discuss new ways of doing things. So he has found it difficult, and he's now going to find his place in the world. It would suggest an entrepreneurial spirit and an obsessive spirit, because both game changers and polishers can be quite obsessive. If he's going to work with other people, he'd do well to look out for strategists and implementers to help him convert his ideas into reality. And on that topic, if we compare Daisy and Louis together, I think they've got the potential to work quite well together, at least in theory, because we've got Louis' creativity that as a strategist, Daisy can appreciate and see real life applications to it. She's also got the implementer side to start making these things turn into reality, and the playmaker at a 6 to keep things cohesive and collaborative. And then they've both got strong polisher proclivities, which could be a good thing. It could be they drive towards making something brilliant. The downside could be that they never actually get anything completed because they're too busy tweaking and refining rather than letting something go. The other potential problem with the two strong polisher proclivities there is, yes, they both set high standards, but do they have the same standards in mind? But it's just interesting that we can see people as individuals, but we can also see people within a group. I say this works. We do this with individuals and with schools, and you can see whole year profiles as well as the individual child. So that really is a summary of how the Young People Index works and what we're looking at, and how we then run through and explain this with your child. As a summary, it's friendly, it's meaningful, it's looking at natural energy and potential to make a contribution. It boosts self-awareness self-belief and confidence, and can help with future planning for studies and early career plans. It combines well with academic testing for a holistic profile, a whole child profile. And every child gets a really comprehensive visual report that they can keep and share with you, that they can use for reflection and they can use for further development. Further details are available through Tess Wilkinson. Her contact details are there on the screen at the moment. So you're welcome to contact her if you've got any questions. And I believe, John, we're now moving through to any questions and answers.
Thank you, John. That was very interesting, very insightful. And thank you very much for the case studies, because those are the individuals that bring this to life. And on that topic, we have a question from an international family that says, if I were to do this with my child, what are the benefits in terms of if I want them to go to university in a foreign country, knowing in advance what my child's impact might be? How will that help them, and how might it help admissions, if that's possible?
Certainly, yeah. Well, certainly can help when you're looking at the subjects, first of all. And we could discuss that with you and see how the particular degree you might be looking at ties in with your profile and certain attributes. That's one point. It will certainly help with your personal statement, because you can start to outline your proclivities and your strengths and highlight why you are the ideal candidate for that particular degree. Does that answer the question, John? I hope it answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of international families that you've worked with, John, where do you see this adding real value to them in terms of understanding the whole child?
Yeah, I mean, the value is people normally haven't considered this. We're used to certain types of assessments, and this is quite a unique way of gaining knowledge of your own profile, your own way of thinking, your own approaches. So I think it's quite a revelation sometimes, and it sparks a new way of thinking, a new way of viewing yourself, and that could be quite liberating. And often people say, right, yes, I get that now. I understand why I do that, and why I can't help myself doing it, because that's the point. This is our natural energy. And when this is highlighted and it makes sense, I think it can be quite it's quite freeing in terms of you start to recognize you can make the most of your strengths.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to remind everyone that in addition to the Henley Academic Profiling Assessment, which focuses on academic skills and academic strengths, the Young People Index complements the HAPA as HAPA complements the YPI. So again, if you're looking over the course of the next few months or year to create a holistic overview of your child or your children, then do please get in touch with us, because we can coordinate the two assessments to make sure that they're timed in an appropriate way and that you maximize the opportunities that you have with both of these online assessments and evaluations. So John, that's it for today. Thank you very much for your overview and for skipping through that presentation in great detail with lots of color. Really appreciate it. And if we have any inquiries, which we've had lots of from previous webinars, we will be in touch. But just a reminder to everyone, please direct any questions, queries, or inquiries through Tess Wilkinson, and we'd be more than happy to get back to you as soon as possible with further information. But thank you very much, everyone. Have a pleasant and peaceful weekend wherever you are. And if you are interested, on Monday at 3 p.m. CET, 2 p.m. UK, we will be having our final webinar of the Henley & Partners Education Webinar Series. The topic on Monday is SEND, or Special Educational Needs. So if you have a child or you're interested in this particular area, especially around autism ADHD, dyslexia, and dyscalculia, then please join us. We'll have 3 presenters, each with their own expertise that will be able to give you an insight into what Henley and Partners Education can offer you. So from me, John Milne, Head of Henley and Partners Education, thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and see you the next time. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.